this computer. And I'm gonna pretend like I just said hello and then get you to introduce yourself. And then I'll ask you some questions about how you do this work, and then it'll get all recorded and I'll fix it all up.
Okay,
Does that sound good?
if you want. Okay. Okay.
But do you want?
Yeah, it's fine. Go for it. If you don't like it, you don't have to use it, right?
And it's Dita?
Yeah, yeah. I have
Yeah.
a full name. If you want me, I'll do that introduction too. So,
Okay.
yeah.
It's whatever you would like for however you would like to show up. So I'm just gonna pretend like we just got on. Hello and welcome back. Today we are here with Dita, and I am just going to pass it over to you to introduce yourself and ground yourself in this work about who you are and what you do.
Hi, Sego Sagwanagoga. My name is Shana Ditta Yogohare Sanandariago. Nitiwagenon Gahnawagi. Uh, I come from Ganawagi, and my name is Shauna Dita. Everybody just calls me Dita Cross. I've been working in the Burnaby School District for about 20 years, 21 years, I think. And I've been living out here for almost 30 years. Um, what happened was I came out here to visit a friend and I met my husband, and here I am. So it's been fun. And I did finish my education here, and I did my undergrad at UBC, and then I did my teacher ed there. And then I went and I did my master's many years later at SFU. So I was privileged to work with many amazing Indigenous women, my mentors, Dolores Vanderway up at SFU was our supervisor. So,
Mhm.
after doing that master's, you think you've survived. You've survived the Vanderway, we used to say, because she's not an easy
No.
person to learn from, but really good education, and I'm really grateful for that. And yeah, so that's me. I've been teaching in Burnaby in the actually started K to 12,
Mhm.
and then they focused me more. I've been doing K to 7 for about, I'd say, 15, 16 years. So yeah, just
Good.
mostly doing Indigenous resource, so that's supporting our Indigenous students and teaching about the history and culture for a long time now, and trying to share the truth about the history of Canada.
Right? Yeah, such an important piece for us to be able to talk through and work through, which is one of the reasons why Tessa's Red Dress came out, was to be able to talk about topics for especially the younger grades. And I'm super curious to hear about all the different ways that you've engaged in not only teaching, because it sounds like you're not just teaching children in the class, but you're also teaching teachers as well. So looking at some of the things that you do in your work to share with others.
Okay, so well, I got involved with we have this committee. I don't know if other teachers probably know, but BCTF has been working on a lot of curriculum things. And so I've been working, I was part of that committee. It's called the Aboriginal Education Advisory Committee for about 6 years. And then you can also just become a facilitator of the different workshops they do. So I think in about 2018, we started really looking at the murdered and missing women. And we also use the 2S plus as well. But doing workshops about it and talking about it and just raising that difficult conversation. Um, and they've done a lot of great work. I was telling you earlier about that, the little beaded felt dresses. That's one project you can do. And you could always put up the website, right, for everyone to look at. And I don't know if you want me to show it or, yeah. So this is a great resource that you can look up. And of course, it's all based on the report that was done. Um, their voices will guide us. And after that report came out, that really helped a lot of us to dive into this work. But it's based on, Jamie Black's work. So there's all kinds of information. And of course, we do list the book that we do read. It's not an easy book to get through there. It's called Ni Mama, and I think it's Cree. Yeah. Priya Anishinaabe. I'm so sorry, I forget right now. But what a great book. But it's a little bit difficult to go through. But the important thing about it is that I think it's a little girl. She stays with her grandma, and they talk about how, mom isn't there, but mom is always there in the background. Like you can hear her voice or you can see her like spirit present. And it's a very powerful book. And if you can get through it without crying, then you can really do a good thing because it doesn't really bring up the fact that she's murdered or if she's, but that she's gone from the family. So that really has an impact. But of course, she has other women in her life that love her, the little girl, her grandmas, her aunties, and all that, right? So, you know, um, in my career, I've taught lots of kids that actually have moms that are missing or aunties or cousins or whatever, right? And so it really touches them and they understand. Because when I first started, we really just focused on, sharing our culture and things with Indigenous students. And then it's opened up for about probably 15 years, maybe 8, 10, 15, something like that, where we teach all classrooms about, the history of Canada. And since, it's part of the curriculum, we have the standard 9, we try, but many teachers, like, are very reluctant to touch on these kind of topics, right? So if we come in with, say, a storybook, that's why I can't wait for Tessa's Red Dress to come out. It's not an easy topic, but it is something that kids, like you say, they can relate, they can understand, they know right and wrong. I've been teaching little kids about residential school for a long time. And never forget a little girl, she was Haida, and she said, my grandma went to residential school. And she says, how could those people do that to little kids? Like they understand and that's yeah, they've grown up with that, so they know about the injustice that's happened in the world. And kids really do understand injustice. I mean, we have kids in Burnaby from all over the world, and their lives have been touched in many ways, right? So they understand.
Mm-hmm. 100%. I agree with that. And I think that that's why it was really important to be able to have the conversation and start the conversation, and especially at the younger ages. And while you were talking there, I was connecting with when Nicola Campbell came out with her books to talk about residential schools with younger people because she was really thinking about the process of what it was like prior to that happening, right? And making those connections. And I thought that that was a beautiful way to engage the conversation. So within Tessa's story, it's about her and her mom having a conversation about family, about love and their connections and what it means when somebody's missing from that and an important person missing from that. And what I always try to reiterate to people is that we need to be talking about strong Indigenous women so that when they do get to the age of grade 4, when they start to talk about it, then they have this foundation, right,
Mhm.
of strong matriarchs.
Yeah.
So I'm so curious, what kind of advice and information do you give the K to 3 teachers about how to teach the topic, or what have you done with them?
Okay. So they do a lot of times we just do the little red dress, right? And they can color it um and that. But one really powerful way of doing it is taking some silhouettes, and I just have new silhouettes here that I got last week of people. Could be like a woman silhouette or a person in, like it doesn't even have to really look like anyone, right? But it's these ones are new. This is kind of interesting. You take the silhouette, and the idea is not from me. Like I say, it's come from teachers before me, but it's a really powerful way to do it is you have a silhouette. And on the outside, like you said, talk about the women in your life and the influences they've had on you. Like, what if they taught you? They taught you, how to love, how to care, how to bake, how to do all of the things that they've taught you about in their life, right? And so the kids will come up with this. They'll think about their grandmas and their aunties and all that. And of course, if they need help writing, you'll have to do the writing. So it could be a one-on-one kind of activity. And then what happens, of course, with the really little ones, that will be hard, but they cut it out. Even if you just cut out a circle around it, right? It'll be hard in K1, 2, maybe grade 3, they could do it, but you cut it out. And then on the back of this silhouette, the black part, there'll be a big empty hole here. All the words are around it. And you write on the back of this little black silhouette, you would write, okay, what would your life be like if they weren't there? Like, who would teach you to bake? Who would teach you to brush your hair and comb and braid, right? So those are things where then you can see what everything the women in your life give to you and share with you. So it's a beautiful exercise. And afterwards, looking at it, you can see the silhouettes and then you'll see the missing parts. and you could read, the impact that that had. So I've had teachers do this. I've had, you know, I guess maybe grade 4 to 12 do this, right? And just reflecting on the strength of women and the things they bring to your family is really important, right?
Mhm.
Because I think if we teach people young, the students and everyone, how valuable women are in their lives, that when they're gone, that's the impact, you're not going to have that auntie to take you shopping or braid your hair or go to the powwow with, and that's a big loss.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. And I even love that, like, even if we were to think about that through the little ones' eyes, to be able to do it in their classes, we could also just give them some words that they could attach, some words that they've said, so that we could support them in that, so that they could also do that. Because yeah, it's really about connection and who is it that we're connected to and what they bring to our lives, so that we can understand the importance and reflect it back on ourselves. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is some advice that you would give to teachers who are a little more hesitant, that are worried about making a mistake, or worried that they don't know enough, they don't want to harm the kids, all of these things that we do typically hear about people who are just worried about stepping into the work. But what advice do you give them?
Well, I mean, I hear it all the time. People are scared to make mistakes and, it's not their place, or, they might be seen as doing appropriation by teaching about this. I've heard it all, but I always say, we have to be brave. And if we don't teach about it, like I feel like it's my responsibility as a mother, as a grandmother, now especially as a grandmother, that to share the truth. It's just the truth. We're not doing anything different. And definitely you would look at the report, right? Their voices will guide us. Read that through. I know you said you included a nice synopsis at the back of
Hmm.
chapter 4, is it? That's a
Yeah.
really important
Uh,
one.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think that people should really inform themselves and really understand that this isn't about blaming someone. This is like a systemic problem. This has been happening to Indigenous people around the world for a long time, and it's up to us to change it, just like everything. Like we're just sharing information, and you might not feel comfortable and it might be new to you, but our kids are going to find out somehow. And they're going to be like, what is going on? What is this red dress day? Or, and you don't want it to get brushed away. You want it to stop and make it a teachable moment, right? And it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be focused on the fact that people were murdered. The fact is that they're gone and that they won't be able to contribute. As all of your aunties have probably had an influence on you, or your grandmas, people in your life that maybe they're not even your relatives, but they've had an impact on you, right? So
Mhm.
without that, what's missing? Like we're missing a lot, I think, in our society today with,
So,
everybody living in their one house and mom and dad over there and grandkids over there. Like you're missing that connection with the generations to come, right? So yeah, I always just try to ground them and say, you know what, it's okay. You can always ask me, ask the other Indigenous resource teachers around. In our district, we have some consultants and teacher kind of helpers, and we do a really neat thing. Once a month, there is an online teaching.
mhm.
So they've been bringing in this year some elders from different communities to talk and
Oh,
share, just to visit with an elder. We don't even really know what they're going to talk about most of the time, but it's like people are always, I want to have an elder in the classroom. Well, do you? Okay, here you go. Try it out, because they don't know, because they don't have a relationship, right?
Mhm.
People need to know how to start that relationship. So just reach out to the community. There's so much in the Lower Mainland, right, about the community that you can support, attend the march on February 14th. They do one every year down here. And
Mhm.
then they also, of course, the Red Dress Day in May.
Maybe.
That's another thing to do. So, I mean, there's enough out there that people should know that they can connect, right? I
Mhm.
hope that's helpful.
Yeah, it is.
And
And I agree. There are things that people can participate in, if they're looking, and they can look things up. There's lots to be able to participate in. And I also like the elders. One of the ladies that I talked to, their schools in their school district have kukums for the schools, so
that's
that
amazing.
they have a grandma come in. So I think that would just be lovely, because I think that would then again bring in that importance of and listening to stories and all of that. I think that's great.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
love it. There was one other thing that we were talking about when you stepped in. I thought, oh, that would be such a good information. I can't remember what it was.
About connecting to also just our union. That's a stepping stone, right? People can go to the BCTF website and look up under, oh, I think they call it Aboriginal education, which is
Yeah.
fine. You know, we all have our own names for ourselves. So
Yeah.
Aboriginal is like the legal term. So, and Indian as well, Indian status, right? I remember explaining that to a class the other day, and the little boy was like, "Excuse me, what did Indians do?" But he was like South Asian, right? And I was like, "Oh, not you." So
Right?
I had to explain that. You remember when Columbus got lost? So it was great. Yeah. So,
Right?
um,
Well, yeah, and that's good to explain that. Yeah. Because when people think about that, especially why the term is still used, and it's used because it's a legal term, and if we get rid of that legal term, it opens up a whole other can of worms. So
right.
that's yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just it is
You
there.
can't you can't not teach about the history when you're teaching about Indigenous education, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, I don't know if this is going to be off on a tangent, but I was been teaching about weaving, Coast Salish weaving, and making the little quarter bags with students that we
Mhm.
we learned from Alice Gus and Anjanette Dawson, and so I'm
Mhm.
just sharing that. But there's so much more in it that I share, and also Aaron Nelson Moody Splash. He said that those little bags they started being made when it was illegal to practice our culture, right? And so that has to come out when I'm teaching that, and I have to tell them, well, why? Well, they put the quarters in there to give to the witnesses so that they could go out and buy their own bag, their own, sorry, blanket, their wool blankets from the HBC. And everybody can still remember HBC. Now, I don't know what will happen in many years when HBC is gone, but it's still part of our history, right?
It is. Yeah.
That, you know, you can't not teach about why things happened, why our people did things and adjusted, changed the way we practiced our cultures so that, you know, it could still happen, you
Hmm.
know, still carry on. So,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
I love that you've just connected all of those people to the territory and their crafts and what they do, because I think that that's also important too. When we're talking about Indigenous anything, is that we always start with the local and we move our way out from wherever you're located. And then when you do bring in other places, just honoring and acknowledging that Indigenous people, there's so many of us from so many different backgrounds and so many different cultures, and this comes from this culture and that culture. So I think that that's also a beautiful way to make that connection to how that we're not pan-Indigenous.
No, no, no. And because I'm from so far away, right? I have to show them where I come from, and I have to say, you know, this is I had to learn about this. This is not where I come from. My people are different. We have this and we have that, but they end up understanding that we're from all over Canada, right? That, you know, we call this Turtle Island.
Hmm.
Maybe they don't hear, but the reason is because this is my story, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, they understand that there's differences, big differences. So,
Yeah. And that's
mhm.
beautiful because when I started teaching, there was not that at all. There was hardly anything,
I know.
right? That we didn't talk about anything. So I think that it's a beautiful space that we're moving into, and teachers are starting to step into the work. And I think that Tessa's red dress will help. And I
Oh,
think
yes.
listening from other educators to see how they do the work is also beautiful as well. So that will help as well.
Yeah.
So, do you have any kind of final thoughts that you would like to say to all of those people who are going to use the book in the classrooms?
Well, I'm really excited to have a new book to look at and to look at the red dresses happening. Um, I would say just consult with people around you, you know, talk to the community, talk to the Indigenous teachers in your district. If you're lucky enough to have elders in your community that you can talk to, like having a cookum in your school would be fabulous. You know, I just
Right.
think about that welcoming sense that students could go to them and just get a hug or something, right?
Mhm.
Kids need that. But to not let, like some people have said, your discomfort stop you, because discomfort is where change happens, right? And um we need to be uncomfortable in order to learn, right? And that's why when we have little ones in our classrooms and they're scared, that you need to build that relationship in order for them to be able to learn, right? So in order to take that risk, we have to do that with ourselves too, right? We have to learn and then take a risk, right? So
Mhm.
not be afraid to ask for help when you need it, and look for the resources and consult your community, you know, and then they'll help you. We want this information out there. We want to share um, what's been happening, and hopefully that can make some change, some systemic changes. That's what we're looking for, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of your wisdom with us today.
Oh, thank you for doing this work and for writing that new book. And I'm looking forward to more books, and hopefully we can have you online sometime.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
I would love that.
thank you. Thank
It's been super fun talking to teachers and educators, and yeah,
That's
I
great.
think it's gonna be good.
Yeah, I know lots of other teachers too, if you're interested, that doing great work. So.